So we got an update, baby, and that means we now have access to Power Loaders, the add-on for Create, and Copycat Plus. And this is honestly huge, as it means my station is going to be able to function correctly, and it's going to be a wonderful thing. And future builds are going to look fantastic due to the Copycats Plus mod. And I want to kind of explain how all of those things are going to work going forward. Before we get into the chunk loading madness, let's talk about Copycats Plus, because this adds a ton more different Copycat variants, and they all have some interesting uses. Some of them better than others. For example, we have this Copycat block that has like a question mark, right click on a cat. Apparently that's something we can do. I kind of want to try that, but we also have a ghost variant of a block. So if I place this down, entities can just pass directly through. So there's like some more functionality to these copycats than you might first think whenever you see this mod. Now, some cool things that we can also make are slopes. A lot of these parts like grow. I think it's a really cool, the like corner slice one. So for example, I place that in the corner, look at that. And we can grow the corner. So we can make a bunch of different, like we can make a ton of different like sized blocks and stuff like this and do all kinds of funky stuff. Like, look at that. I mean, there's so many different options here, and this is fantastic. And it gives us a lot of options when building trains. Well, of course, not just trains, but trains are definitely a huge one where we can get a lot more detailed on our trains. And really the main things I'm worried about are like stairs and just some of the main things like slabs, some of the vanilla blocks, because a lot of these things like ramps and stuff, I'm probably not going to use all that much, but sideways stairs, yeah, I'll take those. Beams, being able to change the color of shafts, yes. Like we can fully customize what cogs look like, and we can customize all kinds of other aspects from this mod. Fence and doors, yes, please. Different colored pipes, like, yeah, like even copycat panels that you can place in the center of a block, much like you can, for example, iron bars, but it takes up the entire block. These are all going to be super fun to play with, and we might get to play with a little bit of them today. But before we dive deeper into that, I want to see what happens when we click a copycat block on a cat, and I think there is a cat over here around my village, definitely where Legion is stationed. Unless somebody has offed that cat, I mean, that would be really sad, honestly. Aha, I thought there was one roaming around in Legion's base. Let's see if we can sneak up to the cat. Maybe I'll have to run it down. Oh my! Wait a minute. The copycat block can copycat the cat. Oh, this is a level of inception that I definitely needed today. This is hilarious. Oh, and I love that. Yeah, we copycatted the block. Wait, can we use blocks on the copycatted cat? Okay, no, it's literally just, that would have been hilarious. Now I wonder, can we get the copycat off the cat, or is it just permanently here? Like, can we use a wrench on the cat to get it? Oh, I gotta leave this for Legion. Like, we gotta leave this. We gotta leave. Don't tell him who did this. Don't tell him. All right, just, you know what? He's just gonna see it, and then that's gonna be it, right? Can I pick you up? Come here. There we go. Perfect. I'm gonna set this in a seat. Yeah, now I'm gonna leave this in here, but you guys, you can't spill the beans. You just gotta leave him like completely wondering, like, who did this? I think I'm gonna place it right here, and for copycat's sakes, get over here. Don't go. No, don't go into something you shouldn't. Oh, don't. No. Man, it is really hard to get these. Oh, there you are. All right, so I got this, and have a seat. Oh, it's adorable. Again, don't tell him who did this. Now with the Copycats mod out of the bag, well, that cat specifically is out of the bag. Let's go ahead and talk about power loaders. I have a plan for today, and if we're going to be getting into power loaders, we have a lot of crafting to do, a lot of resources to gather, and we have a whole lot of chunk loading logistics to talk about. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about why we need chunk loaders in the first place on the server. Well, that's pretty simple. If we're not nearby, let's say we are actively at spawn and a train comes through here, unfortunately, the train does not load an area that it's in. So it will just sit here as an entity, and none of the actual items can go in and out of the train. And we can see that clearly already just by our milk production, because our train behind me wasn't able to grab any milk especially if I'm just standing over here, because those particular sections are not actively loaded. Now, are these chunk loaders going to hurt the server? You may be concerned about that. Well, there's going to be a way that I think I'm going to go about handling this. And I think that it will be probably one of the most optimal ways, and it will help with the server overall, especially if all of us are using a system like this. And you know what? We'll talk about that logistics setup here in a second, because first we actually have to get our hands on these chunk loaders, and they actually have quite the process that's going to be needed. And I am going to need several of them, because the max size chunk loader that you can have is a brass one, and it can only load up to a 5x5 area of chunks, which is quite a few chunks, but in the grand scheme of things, I would need like 4 of them of that size to cover the entirety of this entire area. And that's just the train logistics area, because I probably need like some 3x3 ones over here, and you know, so on and so forth. And to be able to see the chunk bounds, by the way, you can hit F3 and G together and you can actually see the individual chunk spaces. And yeah, if we count this up to be able to do a 5x5, let's just assume we need to load this chunk and this chunk corner over here. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3 right here, and then 4 and then 5 over there. That doesn't cover the entire area. And then we also have to worry about the chunks going this way, 5. So we'd have to make sure it covers that. So 4 of them, and I've already kind of calculated 4 of them, 1 right here, 1 over in this chunk over here, and then same mirrored on the opposite side. Should be enough if running at a 5x5 to cover the whole thing. But I don't want them loaded all the time. I only want them loaded when a train arrives. And yeah, can we do that? Well, I guess the answer to that question is going to have to wait until after we actually get our chunk loaders, because this is going to take a while. Now, why exactly is this going to take a while? We'll take a look at the chunk loader here, the recipe for it. Now, this is pretty straightforward and looks very cheap, but we have a problem. The respawn anchor. Yes, this very dangerous block right here cost 6 crying obsidian. And there's really only one way to make renewable crying obsidian. We don't have any create recipes to be able to make it. That's not a thing. However, we do have piglin bartering, and that is going to be possibly one of the only renewable ways that we can actually get enough crying obsidian to make all of these chunk loaders. So I was thinking to speed this up, what we could do is we could make a nice little like AFK-able like bartering farm. Like this should be really easy to do, especially since we can actually pick these guys up. You know what? I can travel through my train area, just coming through this portal, and like we could set this up over here, like somewhere out of the view of gas, hopefully. We got our first little customer here. So you know what? I'm going to place a seat over here for now, and I'm going to pick this guy up. I think I can pick him up. Yep. And then we'll just set him on a seat, and he's just going to sit there for right now, and he's going to wait. And if I find any more around this area, it might be a good idea to also place them on some seats. So let's make this super simple. So what we're going to have is we're going to have chests that are connected to one another. So just like this. I'm also going to separate it. We're going to have a block gap in between all 3 of these guys, because I'm going to technically set up 3 of them. We're going to get some hoppers on the back, and the goal is to have them stand here. We're going to drop from a dropper above the gold, and then they're going to take that gold, and then it's going to go into the hopper. When an item goes into this hopper, it will send a comparator pulse. That comparator pulse, we will then just immediately send back up, and we're going to use some redstone links to make the redstone super simple. We're going to send that into a dropper, and this should make this farm really, really easy to build. So just like so, I'm going to take the dropper, have it facing down. Thankfully, though, we don't have to worry about, you know, regular Minecraft mechanics here. We can go ahead and use our keybind built into create now and just have this face down. Oh, it's so easy to just turn the redstone mechanics downward. That makes that so easy. So now that we have this, all we have to do is take a redstone link, and we will have these on separate channels. But up top, we'll make sure these are all in receive mode, so we can just, with an empty hand, shift right click. And now I've just got to program them all into separate channels. And hey, look who decided to show up, and yeah, for the party. Look at that. Now, one thing I'm unsure of, if they're on a seat, will they do trades? Like, will they pick the items up? I'm actually unsure. I don't have any full gold on me. So I'm gonna grab some gold real quick. Thankfully, I do have quite a bit of it. And if I just grab 3 stacks of gold, this will automatically regenerate more gold. So yeah, this is technically automatic. I just have to place it inside the droppers. Before I get this fully set up, I was wondering, do you guys barter while actually on a seat? Oh, you do? I mean, we can make this even better by just putting you guys on a seat potentially, because I think that the hoppers will actually collect the items that way. Look at that. And we just got fire resistance. Okay, I mean, so with that in mind, let me just take you off of here real quick. I will pick up the seat, and then I will place the seat right here. And that means you can go right on the seat. That's perfect. Wait, yeah, we'll have to make sure the glass is in front. Oh, this might work really well. All right, last few we got to get in here. So there's this one. They take a little bit of damage, but then, you know, they set down. They're going to be completely fine. I mean, I'm not really harming them that much. And then you on there. Okay, perfect. We'll cover this with glass. And then I just need to put the gold in each of these and then throw 1 gold in to jumpstart it. Ooh, I should probably, or I could just put an item inside the hopper. That should also jumpstart it, right? Right? I mean, the comparator should be giving off a signal, even a small signal, whenever the hopper has an item in it. But I guess just placing it in happens so fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and jumpstart this by tossing in the actual gold into here like that. Oh, it did click that time. Okay, perfect. So yeah, when it does go in, there it goes. Then it will send the signal and it all starts. But I'm going to need to add a button up top to jumpstart this, so I don't have to do it manually like this each time, because that's not what we want, right? No. But yes, this should jumpstart. Okay, perfect. Nice. And there's our items going in. So yes, it is already starting to collect everything, and it's just going to continue to run so long as I have gold in here. All kinds of stuff. Soul speed, looks like leather, fire charges. Oh man. But we are after one specific thing, right? So I gotta keep that in mind. We are after crying obsidian. That is the main thing that we want. And there's our first set. Oh, and we even get ender pearls through this. That's right. Now, after about 30 minutes or so, of course, these can get absolutely crazy depending on how many of these guys you have. But it is super nice that they can just set on a seat. Then you don't have to worry about them trying to pathfind or anything weird like that. I know you could probably put them on a hopper cart, or just put them on a regular cart, not a hopper cart. But anyways, here we have all of our crying obsidian, and there's 45, there's 6. So we have about 51. And if we divide this, that means about 8 chunk loaders, because each chunk loader, no matter which one we make, is going to require a single one of these respawn anchors, also some glowstone. Thankfully I have a bunch of that. And yeah, this is going to make about 8 of them. I think that's more than enough for right now, but I'll definitely be back to this farm for sure to farm this up. If not, to definitely provide some of this for some of the other server mates. Was so confused for a moment when I went to craft this. I was like, I have some glowstone. Oh yeah, I kept it inside of a shulker inside of my main storage. It does make the storage hold a whole lot more. Yeah, if you keep certain things in shulker boxes. Now that I'm starting to gather all of the stuff for this, I'm starting to realize it's all not that bad to be able to make these. What makes it really nice though is I do have like precision mechanisms like automated. So yeah, needing some of those is kind of a trivial task, but I am going to need a few of them. I have 91 in stock at the moment. So technically, I'm going to need about 24 of these, give or take. Yeah, 24, takes 3 each. Yep, that's perfect. And this is kind of what the recipe is going to look like right here. So we have a lot of glass going on the top, 3 on the side. I mean, this should be very easy for me to remember. It is just simply glass all along the top. Then I'm going to have some brass casings on the bottom. Look at those, fancy, fancy, fancy. Then we have this placed in our precision mechanism, and then the respawn anchor goes right here. If you place this in the world, do not right click this in your base. This will blow up much like a bed does in the nether, but it doesn't in the overworld. Don't right click on a respawn anchor, especially if you use it for decoration in your base. That's a bad idea. I wouldn't even use it for decoration. But anyways, the shaft is the last thing that goes in. And there we go. This should craft up. Oh, beautiful. This should craft up our first chunk loader. Now I have about 7 more of them to make. But even after I get them all crafted up, we're still not done yet. So yeah, just like I mentioned, if crafting isn't that bad, what makes this bad? Well, we actually have to load it, because as of right now, it's just empty. There's nothing in there. It doesn't do anything. We actually need to do some lore stuff. We need to fill this with the soul of a ghast. And so, because of this mod, that means ghasts apparently have the ability to create portals just like these that can link us and keep things chunk loaded. You know, sometimes it's probably best to just just nod your head and agree and just go, yeah, that sounds right. So what I'm gonna want to do is go find myself a Soul Sand Valley. I'm gonna have the best rates, I think, in a Soul Sand Valley when it comes to at least farming these beautiful ghasts. Ooh, and I've already managed to find a couple of them. So I'm gonna take the loader, and I just need to right click on the ghast to load it into this thing. Like, no joke, that is the requirement. And there we go. So we already have 2 of them that are now loaded and ready to start working. And there's number 3. I'm pretty sure I heard another one. Oh my goodness, there's so many of these guys spawning around here. And I missed that one. It's still kind of fun though. I mean, I couldn't imagine trying to do this without an elytra, like trying to fishing rod them. Oh no, that would be awful. And the last one. Okay, so that is 8 of these brass chunk loaders all filled up and ready to go. So now that I'm back explaining the fun part, the actual logistics, which is a word I'm using a lot, but the actual way that I plan on handling these chunk loaders. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do these chunk loaders. For example, if you want to actually have them chunk load the area that they exist in, you just need to give them some stress, and you also have to make sure their RPMs reach a certain threshold. For example, if you want 1 chunk, according to these base configs, you're going to need to use about 960 SU. And you're going to have it running at about 60 RPM to be at that. That's its bare minimum. For a 3x3 chunk, well, you're going to need about 1,920 SU, and that's going to have to be at a rate of 120 RPM. And then for the max, which is a 5x5 of chunks, that is going to be about 4,000 stress units, or exactly 3,840 SU at exactly 240 RPM. So not all the way at max, because of course, if you do that, it's going to cost more stress. It actually goes over 4,000 SU if you do have it setting all the way at 256. Actually, in our case, I don't even think that it would be worth us downscaling our power for the tiny little SU bump that we are actually going to take, you know, if we were to run this at 256. So technically, if we are to keep this and not lower it down from Beardy Power Co., I mean, we are looking at a difference of about 300 SU, so very, very low. I mean, I would recommend just keeping it at 256, which is what we're probably going to do. We don't have to worry about turning it down, and we can just expand our power and send it over to these loaders. But that is if we just want the loader to, for example, load the chunks without actually being on a contraption, because these can also go on contraptions. And when they are setting on a cart, for example, they will actually load a 3x3 area, and they don't need any stress whatsoever. And they'll continue to load that so long as it's an activated contraption. So if I wanted, for example, on my storage here, if I went ahead and placed this on here and glued it on there, whenever I turn it into a contraption just setting on the rail, it would be chunk loading a 3x3 space. Same goes for a train, and actually as it's traveling on that train, it will continue to load the chunks that it is actively in. And if you think this is bad for servers, just think of it as a very tiny player, because the player loads several more chunks than that when we are actively flying through the server. So in reality, not all that bad as a train is moving back and forth if you did happen to have one on here. But that's not how I want to manage it, because there is one more way that we can actually use these chunk loaders. And this way is also pretty neat. Whenever it is attached to a train station and the train pulls up and the flag goes up, the chunk loader starts chunk loading a 3x3 area, and it actually doesn't require any rotational energy. And so I have a plan. If I see my chunk bounds, and I know that I'm going to need a chunk loader that is in this chunk right here, that is going to power the main base in a 5x5, well, I could utilize basically the 3x3 that this produces for me to then power this, because another cool part about these chunk loaders is when they're actively on, you can use a comparator to receive a on signal. So it will receive a strong redstone signal if the chunk loader is actively chunk loading. So now think about it for a moment. We can actually turn on and off chunk loaders, and we can chain them together. I want to do that. So theoretically, what I should be able to do is I should be able to take this train station and get it a little bit closer. It is actively going to need to be right here because this does a 3x3, right? So it'll do this adjacent chunk right here, which is the one I need it to load to be able to turn on the other chunk loaders. And thankfully, this one chunk loader being on will allow me to also turn on all of the other 3 chunk loaders to load the entire station here. I think this is going to work great, and it's only going to stay loaded while there is an active train right here. But there is some more things we can do because we have redstone clocks now, or redstone timers, that allow us to extend pulses. We can have an extended pulse that could keep this loaded for a little bit longer, but I don't think we're gonna have to worry about that. We just need enough time for packages to load in and out, and we want it to only turn on whenever we have a train actively pulled in. So let's get this moved. To do this, I am going to just copy the name, thankfully, that it will keep all that information. We need to know exactly where this was located at. So we want it facing here. And I'm hoping that I can get this all the way over here. It looks like it will work. Oh, that is perfect. And then we'll just make sure to rename that. And then we can put that chunk loader directly on here. And this, like I said, when the train pulls up and it is active, we should see that this actually turns on. And the train is now here, and notice it has now turned into a portal. So this, like I said, should be chunk loading, I believe, according to the way that this was stated. I believe it is actively chunk loading. Perfect. It said right there, they do not require rotational power, but they are normally inactive. Okay. So that's exactly what we want. It looks just like that. And it does a 3x3. Notice, by the way, that it is now off because the train has left. And that's exactly what we want to see as well. So let's make this a little bit taller. And I do want to get a comparator on here because that's how we're going to receive our initial redstone signal. But now I think to make this easier on me, what I'm going to do is get some power down. So we need to grab some vertical gearboxes. So we'll use this. I'm going to grab some power directly from here. And then we also need some shafts. So we want to run this straight down into this area right here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the power this way, and then this way. That way I can handle this location right here for the shutoff. One here, another gearbox here, another one, and technically another one here, but I do need to get the power going this direction. That seems like a job for the chain drive. Same thing on this side. So now with all of these shafts in, we are going to need a way to shut off the power, and that's where a clutch is going to come into play. So this is what's going to allow us to shut off the spinning and the rotation that's happening over here. And so again, with the help from our little redstone setup over here, that comparator should send a signal directly into this redstone link. And I can use that and use a pulse extender to hopefully extend the length of the redstone even further than what the actual loaded train is. So that way it has enough time for it to move on to the next train station, which is up the road here. And yeah, it'll hopefully last, a little over a minute extra. Now, the cool part about a lot of the redstone components is it has an automatic built-in NOT gate. And I really love that these things have this. And what I mean by NOT gate is the ability to invert the signal. So there we go. So by default, we can click in the middle section here, and that's going to invert the redstone, allowing us to make this redstone a whole lot easier. And that's because we want this to turn on when it receives a signal. So if it receives a signal, we need it to invert this. So that means this now pulses off the redstone, allowing the actual stress to flow through the shafts. And I think for linking the package station, I'm just going to use a chunk loader. So I'll also have the hoe, which is my modifier on the server here. And yeah, we'll just use the chunk loader as well. I think that is going to work just fine. Perfect. And once I have this, when the train pulls in, it should automatically start working. However, I don't think this is going to extend the pulse long enough. It's only 2 ticks. We actually need this to be minutes. And it should like hold this signal for up to 2 minutes, right? So if this receives a signal, it should hold a off pulse for 2 minutes and then turn that signal back on. And because this will be chunk loaded, whenever we have our chunk loaders on top of here, this should all work. I hope. And we got to set this to a 5x5. See, in my head, this all works, but like in practice, I kind of just have to wait now for a train to show up to make sure that my redstone logistics are going to function correctly. And I can actually move these as well, so they don't have to be directly here on the ground, but I did center them on all sides. Here comes the train. That should turn that on. That's now loaded. These are now on and loaded. And then we also have that 2 minutes here. And I don't think the 2 minutes will actually start until this redstone signal has actually gone and faded. So once this redstone signal goes away, that 2 minutes of hold should start, and it will hold for 2 minutes after this train has gone by. Now that might still be too long. I might actually need to set it to a minute, but keep in mind, this will actually have to take some time here to do some work. Otherwise, yeah, because as of right now, it's still on. Notice these are still loaded. Oh, that is perfect. So now that 2 minute pulse is actually happening, and it's going to stay off for 2 minutes. And then once this train is gone and unloaded, which should be plenty of time for that, by the time it gets back on there, it should have unloaded again. And this, I hope, will work. I might honestly set it to a minute. I still don't know. This carriage will set for 30 seconds before it actually moves. So this should work. The train is now fully departed. It's still chunk loaded, doing exactly what I expected it to do. And that 2 minutes should last, and it will shut these chunks down as soon as that happens, because this chunk loader is loading that chunk loader and making sure all of these can interface with each other. At least so I hope. Okay, and the train hasn't returned yet, and the chunks are now unloaded after that 2 minutes of being halted. I think this is... Oh, there comes the train. So yeah, I think 1 minute might be the best here. I'll just set that to 1 minute for right now. I may have to tinker with this from time to time, just to make sure that it does stay loaded enough. And I do want to unload this and try my best to not keep these loaded unnecessarily. So this is the best solution I think that we have available to us. So this is beautiful. Now that we have the chunk loading problem solved here, it's time to kind of solve that over in my crop farm and make sure that my trains can actually load the product. This one, however, we're not going to need the 5x5. We could easily get away, I think, with just a single 3x3. Now, the problem we're having here is, for example, our packages aren't being loaded because our current chunk loading only goes to right here. And so this area is not being chunk loaded. So what I'm thinking is I could put a chunk loader like directly inside of our cow milker, and it can go right on top as a part of that contraption and be glued to it. And when it's active, it should chunk load this chunk. It should chunk load this one, and also these chunks over here, which is perfect because I did chunk align these. Now, my only problem is stopping this contraption to glue it together. All of the animals should stay. It's the restarting that I've had issues with. It may crash me to my client if I do this, but yeah, let's see. Let's try to place this just like that. And then we just need to glue it to the contraption like so. And this should do a 3x3. I don't know if it has to be set or not, but it does say that it will do a 3x3. And let's see. Will I crash? Yeah, I do. It just crashes me out of the multiplayer menu and allows me to pop right back in. And that is on, and it looks like that is spinning and loading. Oh boy, which should mean that this is now chunk loaded. There's only one way to fully test this, and that is to request packages back at the other area and see if the train shows up with some packages to drop off. Now I'm over here. That area would have been unloaded, so I can now request a few. For example, let's set this to, I don't know, 36 stacks. So that is going to request some more. We can set this to requesting 9 stacks. Let's have 9 stacks in there. And then we can request this as well, 9 stacks. 9 stacks. That should really load that thing up, have that going really well. Okay, so that did pulse. So that means there should be some packages that are lining up and ready to go. Now we've just got to wait for our train to take one more trip. It's going to go back here. We got to make it go one more trip back, and I'm going to stay here, and I hope it loads everything. And then we're going to find out if this chunk loading is actually going to function. Oh, and here comes the train. And we still don't have packages on the train. That's a little bit concerning. I mean, because we should have packages. This should have requested packages, right? Oh, wait, that didn't request, but these should have requested. So yeah, second round, still no packages, which has me wondering, maybe it can't be on a bearing contraption specifically. Maybe it has to be as it showed like on a cart contraption. Well, it looks like I'm going to be doing significantly more testing then, because the packages are here, but I feel like they just got here right after I requested them. Wait, no, something else must be up, because it didn't even pick up the packages at all. Like this should work. What's going on now? Okay, so here the train comes. Oh, so us, I guess, adding the train car made this so it doesn't back up far enough. Well, that's an easy fix. Like I can just take the train schedule out. Oh, I get that. I'm so glad, because this has to work. Like this must have worked, but yeah, this has to connect to work, of course. And it uses like the last train car. So like if you did modify anything, you'll have to make sure to do this. It's just some more troubleshooting. So now that that is set up, the packages did go inside, but we really got to test this and make sure. So we're going to do another request, and I am going to send this back on its merry way, head back over to the other side, and well, yeah, I'm going to have to rinse and repeat this, but this time we should be able to see those packages on there after it does another trip. And once I know this is working, it'll give me peace of mind knowing that these solutions are solid and I can use them for any future project. So now the train is on its way and it's about to unload these packages. So let it do its thing. It's going to complete all of its objectives, and then we are going to set a new objective. This will be 40, and we'll set this to 11. And so on and so forth, right? We'll just bump this up a little bit. We definitely have the product ready to go. So now that that is all sent, that should be loaded. By the way, did you see the loop? It did a loop because this must have been filled because I had 2 packages. That's the whole reason this loop exists. We should never be in a situation where these vaults become overfilled. And that's simply because the requesting is all happening with this factory gauge. And also the output requests, these are also going to be handled with the factory gauge when our other things are actively going to need them. So that's why I'm not really worried. This loop is more so to make sure if multiple packages get requested from the same thing, simultaneously, it can make a full loop to come back around to be inserted. Are there packages? Oh, there's packages. Yes. So this means it did work. Oh, and I now have full faith that this setup will actually work. Oh, peace of mind at last. Okay, so perfect. We have just about everything that I wanted to get done today done. We got our chunk loaders looking good, but there is still one issue. I kind of want to get lava pumped into here from over there. And now that we have chunk loading, it will actually be seamless and probably be one of the best ways to demonstrate that this whole system is actually working. Now, right here, I do have a mechanical pump, but what I'm thinking is we should probably move both this and this mechanical pump a little bit differently, because what we're going to need instead is a smart filter. If we're going to do this, we need to do it correctly, and that means using smart filters, right? So how do smart filters work? Well, you can insert a bucket into it that has a specific fluid, for example, milk. We can input that, a milk bucket right here, and it'll only allow milk to pass through there. And that's perfect. But what if you don't have a fluid that you're trying to filter and you need that filter to make that fluid? You can actually use a list filter. This is something that a lot of people may not know. And you can actually drag items from EMI into your list filter or JEI, whatever you're using. And you can actually just place the list filter in here that has that specific bucket in it. And that will also filter out. Or you can have multiple different fluids if you're trying to do that. But pipes are a little weird. They can only hold like one type of fluid. So we really need to make sure that when this does pump fluids, that we filter what type of fluid is coming out of, for example, a mass inventory, which is a train. And this also means new train station as well that I'm going to be needing. Let's see, this will be south. So yeah, new train station is, or not new train, yeah, new train station is going to be needed. And I'm going to need that new train station also on the other side, and that's going to be for loading up the lava, but we have to still design all of that. So for this, I'm just gonna, I think, run this over here. I'm just laying out the pipes for right now, the basic pipes, and then I got to get the, of course, stress over here. But yeah, the idea is we are going to run up through the top. I'm going to run this through the middle. We're going to have a connector in here. And yeah, that, I mean, this is just going to keep going all the way over, and then I can clean this up. And then it's going to run straight down. And I'm hoping with the configuration that we have on here that we're not going to run into any problems. Like I'm not going to have to add any extra pumps or anything like that. I think this will be enough on its own. And if we can just have that load right into there, I mean, this will be perfect. Just add another train track to this area and bam, we will have ourselves a way of getting lava. Now for these decorative sections, yeah, I'm just going to connect it here with an encased pipe. That'll make the bracket look fine. And then same for these hole areas. Definitely want to get those in there. And then this whole setup is going to determine whether or not I'm going to have to go all the way back. Will this pump when I give this power all the way over here? With a little bit of finagling, I managed to get that hooked in, and that should start pumping all of that lava, which is running over. And if we see lava reaching this, oh yes, we know we have connected. So now I just have to set up my new train stations. So now with the lava set up, this is where we got to start getting a little bit different inside of our train schedule. I'm also, by the way, going to break some of these so that way we can unload some of our milk and get this back on track. Like this will definitely delete some of the milk that was inside there. Nice, probably got to do that again just to keep getting more of the milk out of here. That's the goal, right? But anyways, now that we got some milk space, what we want to do is empty the train so that way we can tell our train schedule to go to a couple more places. So I just added them in here. We want the lava load, which is going to send our lava into our train. We want that in between our actual farm load and milk load. So we'll keep that all the way up here. And then down here, we want this to be the last thing that it does because it's the last thing in its list. So it needs to be right here. Now, this is where things get a little bit more complicated because we are going to be checking a few different things on all of our different fluid setups. That's because instead of cargo idle for the load, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to change this. For example, the milk. We'll set this to fluid cargo condition. And we'll say like 16 buckets for right now. Keep that in stock. And then we can actually take a milk bucket and we can use that as a filter on this particular train. So yeah, we'll make sure to go in here. We'll set this to fluid condition. And then we want it to skip the train if there's more than, for example, 16 buckets of milk inside the cargo. And we can specify that milk by putting it in here. So now that that is specified, that is our condition. And you can see continue train hold, continue if train holds more than 16 buckets. And that's essentially our condition for that train. It will go there if the, it will wait until there's 16 buckets that it can go into the train, which we shouldn't have a problem with. And then if it has 16 buckets, it will just pass on through, and it shouldn't stop there. To continue filling up past 16 buckets. So that should be fine. Actually, this being 16 probably needs to be, like, if we really wanted it to, it needs to be exactly 16. But if we say 15, it'll make sure that it is at 15 or 16, give or take. And I want to do the same thing for lava as well. Now, this is just for the loading of the train. I'm also going to take all of these and I'm going to set that duration to about 15 seconds. Actually, no, let's do 10 seconds for all of those. Anything that has a timer on it for seconds, I'm going to set that to 10 because I think it's setting there for 30 seconds just seems a little bit over. And we're getting better with our train setup here. So this is just the one that's moving these simple things. We're gonna have a much larger train network soon, but yes, this one's also gonna need to be cargo inactivity. And thankfully for these, like we don't have to worry about the unloader, right? Because we're filtering here. That is how we're gonna be filtering everything. The main thing is I just wanted to be able to hold 2 different types of fluids, and this is probably one of the best ways of doing it, just by simply using the train. Before I get this system up and running though, I do want to make sure that our milk is getting drained out of our train, because we don't really want this to be filled completely like it is. Now, the more I looked at this, the more I realized, yeah, we have a lot more fluid storage in this, and I think we could bump these numbers up to about 49 and we would still be fine. That way we can carry significantly more fluid in here at any given time. So it's about 50 buckets per transfer. That'll make sure for lava we are definitely keeping up. I don't know if milk is going to pose such an issue, but now we have it set up. This is empty, and I think my drain schedule is ready to go. Yeah, path to what? I don't know what that was all about, but yeah, let's just make sure that it actually moves up to this for the next stop location. And I hope that it goes back. I just had to skip a few stops. So the train has now stopped in, and what I'm hoping to see, yes, is milk and lava both on the train, which is exactly what we're seeing. Oh, this is fantastic. And now this means we have lava being transferred into this storage container, which we can send to any farm in the future. That is wonderful. Now, you know what? I think this turned out fantastic. And now that we have train, we have ourselves some lava being filled in. We can start to use this for other automations in the future, and it's just going to be as smooth as butter. Or at least, so I hope. And now that we have our package logistics set up and we have the ability to chunk load and make sure things actively work, and we know how these chunk loaders are going to work in the future, I can start to actually plan out my ideas. Oh, and it's going to be awesome, especially when we get that chocolate factory set up. So you'll be able to see it fully working once that is happening. And I hope you enjoyed the Copycat shenanigans. Hopefully you enjoyed learning about these chunk loaders, as I know I definitely did. And with that, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you enjoy videos like these, and give this video a huge thumbs up. And of course, don't forget to comment down below. I'm still figuring out which one of you to pick for the name for the train and the station. So we'll keep that in mind. It's going to be happening within the next episode or so. And well, join the Discord, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect, or you can join the SMP Discord down in the description below. That's the easiest way to find that one, where you can talk about all of the shenanigans that are happening here. And now that the advertisements are out of the way, I do want to give a huge shout out and a huge thanks to the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to, if I can get the thanks in right, there we go, Vixie Faye. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. Thank you so very much. And thank all of you guys who have subscribed and those who watched today's episode. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, yet again, thanks for watching.